This is Dangerous Doug Gilbert here. I mean what I say, and I say what I mean. And you're listening to Live with Wolfie D.
Hey, this is Jimmy Street, host of the Live and in Color with Wolfie D podcast. Hear the life and times of professional wrestler Wolfie D. From his time in the territories with PG-13 to his time in WWE, ECW, WCW, TNA, and more. Nothing is off limits and nothing will be held back. Thanks again for tuning in. Here he is, Wolfie D.
Welcome once again to Live and in Color with Wolfie D and my man Jimmy across the street. What is going on?
Not much, dude. How you doing, brother? Living the dream.
Oh, man. Just got back from the pre-op for my surgery next week, and guess what they told me?
Whoa.
I've never had this happen. So, usually when you have surgeries, like don't eat or drink anything, after 12 p.m. or 12 a.m. the night before, blah, blah, blah. They're telling me I can't eat all day Monday. I can't eat all day Monday. I got to go a whole day without eating anything. Only clear liquids, like I can drink water. I don't know, Jimmy. I don't know if I could do it.
Wow, man.
Well, I mean, that's brutal. That's seriously brutal.
Whole day, man.
Whole day. No coffee. No. Michelle was like, well, you could have some soup. I said, that's not fucking clear.
Right. Yeah.
I can't have nothing. Oh, my God. What am I going to do?
Yeah, and it's totally clear. You're not talking about like you could see through broth a little bit somewhat,
Yeah. I just don't even get that, man. It's like, what?
Yeah,
it only takes a few hours for most shit to digest. It's like, come on, man.
Right. And it doesn't have anything to do, your shoulder doesn't have anything to do with digestion, but whatever.
And out of my, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 or 7 surgeries I've had in my lifetime, I've never heard this. So this is a new one. But they did give me a Gatorade. This is a new thing. At 12 a.m. I'm supposed to drink a 16-ounce Gatorade, and then they give me one of those smaller ones that I'm supposed to drink 2 hours before I get there. So it's blue, and I'm like, okay, I can't eat all day and clear liquid, but you're giving me Gatorade to drink. I don't even understand that. Whatever.
Yeah.
Somerset, man.
Yeah. You know what's something funny is recently, what was it, 2 or 3 episodes ago when we were talking about you actually having this surgery, and you put me to a little test. You were like, Jimmy, hey, go home, confirm that you can't wipe with your left hand. Well, I never did. No, I didn't. But here's one of our faithful listeners. Okay, so Donnie Davis, been listening to us for a long time now, and Donnie says, he goes, listener Donnie Davis tried wiping left-handed, and he says, hey, I got an update for you on the latest podcast with Wolfie. I can confirm that you cannot wipe the gimmick with the left hand. So, Donnie,
it's extremely hard.
Yeah.
It is extremely hard. It is scary because you know what could happen,
Yes, right.
You could
don't
get
line that thing up properly.
The poop on the finger.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Dude. And I'm not going to lie, and I'm going to tell all y'all, I have done that before where I actually wiped and got it on my finger and I gagged. I didn't know if I needed to stand up and then throw up or remain there so that the poop didn't come out of my butt. But I did fucking it was horrible. It was real gross.
See what kind of conversation you've instigated, Donnie.
Yeah, well, I mean, brave man for trying.
Hey, yeah, I whenever you put me to a challenge, I just get the listeners to do it.
Hey, that could be like the next ice bucket challenge. The left hand. Well, I mean, there's lefties out there that do it all the time. That do the opposite hand wipe and see what you get.
Well, it'll be the poop finger challenge. Sounds like. Yeah. And then that is me. That is the dry heaves going there.
Yeah, it's gross.
Yeah. Well, I hope that didn't happen to you, Donnie, but either way, just trim your fingernails or something. But yeah. But anyway, so that was just something that I thought was so timely, especially since it's now time for you to go under the knife. You might, want to
again.
I I'll say this. It was kind of nice being doted on after a surgery and stuff, but after a while, I'm like, no, I'm done with this. Let me get over it.
Dude, this shit, orthopedic surgery ain't no joke, man. They rough you up in there, man.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, that hip thing, I was sore all over, man. It was like brutal. And surely this won't be as bad as the hip, but man.
Well, if it is as bad, you can start a feud with them, Wolfie D. What do you think about that?
With what?
If they do mess you up and rough you up in there, you could start a feud with the hospital.
A feud with the hospital or just my surgeon, because it's the same surgeon that did my hip. And so, yeah, me and Miss Leslie Swindle might have to go at it.
It'll be a new feud, man, because, I mean, that would be timely with what we're talking about today, right, Wolfie D? Tell them about it.
Feuds, man. And it's, when me and you came up with this, I was like, man, this top 10 stuff, because me and you usually have this a lot of the same stuff on our list.
Sure.
So let's just call it our all-time favorite feuds. Let's just discuss about some of the feuds that like meant something to us, or even past our childhoods, once I was in the business and stuff, and some of the things that just stood out to me, man, that I think are good ones. So that's what we're going to do, is talk about that. And I'd like to, if anybody else has one that we leave out, because I'm sure I will, and I'm sure you will, but if anybody's got something better than what we're going to discuss here in a few, bring it on. We love y'all's feedback, and we just don't get enough of it. I really feel like I want some more interaction.
So what does that say, Wolfie? Does that mean that we're always right on everything and nobody disagrees with us? That's the way I take it.
I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe we're just so smart.
We know that's not possible. It's you and I. Come on, man. So we know they're disagreeing, and maybe they don't want to come under fire from like one of Wolfie D's fiery promos, maybe, or maybe
I don't know. And on this, there's going to be some that like I'd like to leave myself out of this. You know how I am. But there's shit that I did, that we did. I'll say, Jamie, Brian Lee. There's shit that we did that was good, man. And
yeah.
Some of that probably will be brought up, but then others are going to be just shit that I remember and why I thought it was good, and same with you. So I would say let's get them on the phone, but let's just take a break and let's come back, and me and you will continue this conversation about our favorite feuds.
Be right back after these messages.
Hey folks, to get your official Live It in Color with Wolfie D merchandise, go to ProWrestlingTees.com/Live Wolfie D. Check it out.
If you're listening to Live and in Color with Wolfie D on Apple Podcast and like what you're hearing, go ahead and leave a 5-star rating. And while you're at it, write a review. Tell us what you liked. Tell us what you'd like to hear in the future. It's very important to us and always appreciated. Thanks again.
All right, guys, we're back. Thank you once again for surviving those incredible commercials that Jimmy puts on. He don't want to admit it, but he does all the work.
Oh, come on, Wolfie D. Come on.
No, you do, man. I mean, all the commercials that's you putting shit together.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it. I have fun with this, man. It's like people enjoy hunting and fishing, and I enjoy putting podcasts together for some weird. That's my hobby. Plus,
and absolutely none of those things have I ever done. I've been fishing, but I've never been hunting, and I've never put a podcast together.
Well, you kind of have. Though.
Have you ever hunted?
I have, yeah. Squirrel. I went.
Really?
Yeah. I got a squirrel and never went back.
Talking to White Boy makes me want to go do that. I'd like to check it out and see, but I don't know.
Dude, my father-in-law owns his own little land, and he bought that land just so he could hunt on it. And
really?
Supposedly as a family member, I can go hunt on it anytime without a license.
And you've never done it?
No, man, because it's just like 4:30 in the morning, bro. I'm usually going to bed.
Yeah, it's an early thing.
You know how? I mean, come on. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah. So you never shot any living animal except a squirrel?
Yeah, or a Byrd or something maybe, but
Yeah, I shot a Byrd one time. I don't know if I ever told you this, man. Me and my buddy that I grew up with, that took me to church and all this kind of stuff. We had a BB gun, and we shot a bird, I shot the bird. It was in the tree, and it hit him in the eye. So it was like a Terminator eye. It fell out of the tree, and it was not dead. It was not dead, and I felt so awful. And then his dad came out, who is like super, Baptist church, man. And like, I don't remember what he said to me, but it was some kind of lesson in life and all this kind of stuff, man. I felt horrible. But I'll shoot a deer to get some jerky right now.
Oh, dude, backstraps for days, man. I'm all about it. But yeah. Exactly. Anyway. What's funny, we have deer jerky in my refrigerator right now that you would
really.
Yeah,
and
it's
you
amazing.
Ain't sent me none.
I'm sorry, bro. There wasn't a lot.
What a dick.
I know. Hey, listeners, I got a great idea for a show. If y'all out there make deer jerky, send us samples. We will make a contest of it. Whoever, you can have your own trophy that you make yourself, because we're not going to buy one. But when it comes down to it,
if
it's that good,
right?
Yeah. And I'm just saying, hey, I think that's a great idea. Deer jerky contest live on a podcast, live and in color. Let's do it.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I'm on a protein diet, so yeah.
Yeah. Well, as long as we're just not feuding about it, right? I mean, that's the whole idea of today's show.
Let's don't feud, Mr. Segway.
Yeah, let's not feud over the segue here. But, when it comes down to it, all-time greatest feuds, honestly, Wolfie, you really can't. I mean, the wrestling that you love and the wrestling that I love and the wrestling that our listeners love, you really can't have that without good feuds. Like, the feuds make it what they are.
And you know what? Let's just say this. Me and you debated over whether calling this feuds or storylines. Yeah, right. That's the word now. Back then, angles, feuds, whatever. So it's all kind of the same, y'all. It's all kind of the same.
We're old school. We're going to call it feuds, right?
Yeah, feuds. But anyway, what was your first favorite feud, Jimmy?
Oh my God, my first favorite feud?
Yeah.
Wow. Man, I would say something to do with the Horsemen and the Rock and Roll Express. I would say probably.
I remember, Horseman's got to be in the fucking conversation.
Yeah.
No matter what it was. I mean, I just remember Flair could never lose because the rest of them would come in and DQ it or whatever,
Right. Or, maybe I remember, I know this is weird, but I would say I also remember very vividly the Road Warriors Midnight Express scaffold match deal. And where they were dropping the pumpkins and watermelons off the tall of the roof of the building. And this is going to be Dennis Condrey's head. And
I would have hated, man. That's one thing I'll say, man. I would not have ever wanted, or I don't know if I could be in it. And to make it good is a scaffold match. Holy shit. I'm scared of heights. Yes, I've jumped off top of cage, but I don't know. That's different. I don't know. But a scaffold match, woo.
Yeah. No kidding,
and they all look scared up there.
Oh, dude. They're shaking in their boots.
That bump Cornette took, which match was that? It was the Midnight?
The Midnight Road Warriors Starrcade.
Oh, my God. Dude.
Yeah, no thank you.
I don't think I want to do that.
Well, what's your first feud that you remember?
That I remember? Man, it has to be Randy Savage and Ricky Steamboat, man.
Yeah, that was a great one, man. Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like remembering back to I don't know, the Fabulous Ones and the Moondog Sheep Herders, that type of thing was one that I remember. But man, Ricky Steamboat and Randy Savage was awesome. And, dropping the bell across his neck and it fucked up his larynx and all this kind of stuff.
Right, learning how to talk again. You gotta love that.
Yeah.
E-O-I-E.
Yes.
But yeah, that was a great feud. I mean, when you think about it, you had George the Animal Steel involved. You had Elizabeth involved.
And that was good too, man. I mean, George eating the fucking turnbuckles and carrying Elizabeth off. And
yeah.
And just so much shit they did with Randy. And you know what? I look back at this, man, and Randy's run really wasn't that long, but it seems like longer.
Yeah. Well, when they're
You know what I mean?
when they're epic and legendary, it does give you that vibe. I mean, I think about the Rock and Roll Express, my favorite tag team, but their run on top wasn't that long. I mean, they had elements in Mid-South, and they had elements in Memphis we know and love, and you know, but really their run on top was a brief moment at Crockett, man. And then they go to AWA, and I'm not sure if Ricky and Robert got tired of each other, or if they were in a feud at that time between themselves. Robert got hurt. I know he broke his leg or got hurt or something, but yeah, it was weird to think about how, you know, these epic feuds, their time in the sun wasn't as long as we think them, because we think they were.
It makes it like that because it was so incredible to us, and to think about it, you know, you're back in your younger days, everything seemed longer. I felt like Christmas break seemed like a whole year to me. I mean, if you think about it, man, when you were younger, you know, they say time flies as you get older, and it does, man. Like, but yeah, I remember like Christmas break seemed like a year. So some of these things we watched just seemed like it went on forever, but it really didn't. You know, it was only a few months or something.
Yeah. Well, we've kind of got ourselves on a tangent here, and I like it. So you're talking Savage, I'm talking Rock and Roll Express, but they're all in the same category of awesome wrestling. So what are some of your other favorite Randy Savage feuds?
Randy Savage feuds, man. You know, the whole deal where they did the mega powers. They knew that fucking Hogan obviously was over and changed the business.
Yeah.
And then Randy was over. Great heel. They put them together. But what a great feud that was when you're looking at my woman type shit.
Yeah, lust in your eyes.
Lust in your eyes. Yeah. I mean, that was fucking awesome, man. And the thing is, everybody loved, so they loved Hogan, but they loved Randy, but they also loved Elizabeth. She was a huge part in that, you know? And, you know, when Randy was a heel, you know, hiding behind her and, you know, all that kind of stuff, that was new. And just the way they did that, man, was really awesome, man. Really awesome. And it made you go, man, fuck you, Randy. But then at the same time, fuck you, Hogan, for looking at her like that.
Right. Because you know, I wasn't in a position yet where I had a girlfriend I was jealous over. But you know what I mean? You can understand. I think you can understand that from the start, you know.
And then from the real deal, Randy was really like that.
Exactly. So he didn't have to act.
Yeah.
He was already that way.
Yeah. That's what made it even realer.
Yeah.
We didn't know that at the time, but we know it now.
You know, also, you got to talk about Savage and Jerry Lawler, right? I mean, the Paphos versus Memphis, that was incredible, you know?
Yeah, and we talked about this before. Could that be, and we've asked other people, could that be, well, no, that was Ricky Morton.
Right.
The pile driver spot or whatever, but yeah, that I don't know. I don't know why that I think that he pile drives Lawler to the table.
He probably wanted to. He probably wanted to. Yeah. But I mean, if you think about it, ICW versus Memphis, the Outlaws versus the Mainstay. I mean, man, you know.
That was awesome, man. And, you know, it's just so funny, like back, you know, when I was a kid, I had no idea about ICW. And I honestly learned about ICW like later in my days that even existed. I wasn't from Kentucky. Weirdly, I live here now, but I didn't know nothing about it, man. I didn't know what the Paphos did, but now I get it. And you know, I've heard all the stories and all that, and that's just like really cool. The whole thing with just trying to go at him it was almost like a early Monday Night Wars, right?
Yeah, for Memphis, for sure. You know, I try to think about it because it kills me to think about this, and it's probably more passé for you because you were born in Nashville, but I was born in a small town in Virginia, Lebanon, Virginia, and I have found newspaper clippings of Randy Savage wrestling in my hometown when I was alive, and I'm mad about that. You know what I mean? To know that I was 5 years old and Randy Savage was 10 minutes away, that's nuts to me. So yeah.
He told me to smoke a lot of pot. Remember that?
That's a legendary statement. So
Yeah.
I'm sure
a lot of pot.
Yeah, it'll help you get bigger, brother. But I love when Steve Kern said, he was probably just seeing if you had any.
Yeah. He's probably right.
Yeah. Well, to continue on with our conversation of feuds, obviously we were talking Savage, but Savage and Lawler, big deal. Listener Ben Martin, great listener of ours, always sending in great questions. He said Lawler versus Dundee has to be the #1 feud of all time.
Man, I mean, come on.
Even us mid-Atlantic folks say that. So,
dude,
yeah.
I mean, okay, at the Hall of Fame induction, that was another thing they did. And I mean, seriously, we've talked about it a bazillion times on here of how awesome those two guys worked with each other. I mean, the chemistry with them two, and just, man, you can totally, and they have it, the video with the Rocky music and all that, and it's just like that. It's like, damn, man. And, Kevin talked about it, and it's something that I knew before, just the physics of the way they would punch each other from different angles and, not textbook bumps. And it's still real to me, damn it. Kind of thing, man. It looked like that, man. It looked like they were fucking beating the shit out of each other. And the thing is, man, how do you sell out the Mid-South Coliseum once a fucking week?
Man, seriously.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Seriously. And yeah, it was 70s, 80s. We didn't have internet and other things to do because that's, in my opinion, the houses are reflective of the world we live in now. You have access to other things at any time, that you want it. But then you didn't. And man, to fucking sell out that, I don't know what Memphis holds. I can't remember, but to sell it out that many weeks in a row, once a week, is fucking incredible. And the shit they did. Oh, let's put the car on the line. Let's shave Bill's wife's head. I think they should have done, if Bill loses, Jamie got his nuts chopped off or something. That would have been a good one.
Oh my God.
Anyway, that would have been good.
So the capacity was 10,085 permanent seats and 11,200 when they had basketball in there. So
yeah, that's a lot, man. That's a lot.
No doubt, bro. Yeah. The entertainment capital of the Mid-South, the Mid-South Coliseum. Man, talk about a building that held so many great feuds. I mean, you were talking about the Fabs and the Sheepherders and the Moondogs, Bill Dundee, Jerry Lawler, PG-13, Rock and Roll Express. I mean, all this great feuds. But so Lawler Dundee, what do you think made it so good? What just their chemistry?
Yeah. That's the absolute thing that I think is their chemistry together, because I just don't think I've seen two guys work with each other that they got it. You know what I mean? Like we said, the physics of everything, and it just looked like a real fight, man. It looked like a real fight. And then, they could both talk and build it up. That's Saturday morning. You got Sunday, you got Saturday night, Sunday, and then all day Monday to forget about it, but nobody did. They showed up Monday night, man. I mean, think about that. Monday night is the start of your week, and you're going to go out and, go to the wrestling.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Speaking of their feud, and this came up on my podcast recently, there was a little bit of confusion because, I'm a
podcast.
Have you ever heard of that? And nobody ever has.
I don't think I have.
Why would you have two, man? You're crazy if you do that. But give me back my pro wrestling. But anyway, a fun little podcast we do. But anyway, Quentin and I were talking about Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee's, all their great Loser Leave Town matches. Yeah. And I thought he was talking about the 85 Loser Leaves Town, where he comes out with the 1776 wrapped around his head, Lawler. And Sting is at Eddie Gilbert and all them are at ringside. But he was talking about the 1983 one, which had the Rock and Roll Express at ringside. And so which is your favorite Loser Leaves Town between the two?
Man, all great. But the thing about Loser Leave Town back then was they really
did it.
believed that you were going to leave town. And
Right.
some of them did. You know, you go to another territory or something. So that meant something. Just like the head shaving gimmick, you know, that meant something back then. Even when me and Jamie got our heads shaved, it still meant something. But to this day, that doesn't mean anything anymore. Unless somebody's got like a long, you know, it's a girl or something like that. I don't think it means anything because bald guys like me and you are cool.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. But no, I mean, seriously, though, think about it. Like, you know, bald guys are cool. But when you think about it, then bald guys weren't cool, man. I mean, if you think about it, like,
meant something.
Right. Michael Jordan kind of helped that a little bit. Woody Harrelson, Bruce Willis, you know, those guys. Stone Cold.
Stone Cold in wrestling. I mean,
yeah, totally.
Stone Cold in wrestling.
But I mean, Stone Cold took it from Bruce Willis from Pulp Fiction and Woody Harrelson from Natural Born Killers. That's where Stone Cold kind of took that style of gimmick. So it's cool how Hollywood influences wrestling too, you know.
Life influences wrestling.
Exactly.
It always has, man.
Yeah. That's
back in the day. Here's another big feud was Hulk Hogan versus the Iron Sheik. And Iron Sheik was getting, you know, death threats and shit. You know, you're talking Iran Contra affair. Man.
Right. And then later with Sergeant Slaughter, same kind of deal during the Gulf War, man. I mean, I love when wrestling has their finger on the pulse like that. And some people are like, no, don't bring in real world stuff. I want to believe, I want to enjoy my wrestling as it is. Well, go watch another wrestling, man, because I like the real stuff, bro, you know?
Yeah. But it's just hard, I think, to do that anymore because, you know, everybody knows we're working now, and it's just hard. Back then, there were real emotions. Like, people hated these people. Like, they really did. They thought that the Iron Sheik believed like he did, and Hulk Hogan was the real American. And, you know, it was just different, man. It's just, like I've said 100 times on here, it's hard to make someone hate you when they know you're trying to make me hate you.
Right. No, and I mean, that rings true more than ever, honestly, even today. You know, you see really MJF is one of the only ones that can get people to hate him so well. I mean, you know, I think if they put the Rocket on Miz's back as a heel, he can really get that heat too. But the problem is they've buried him so much that he's almost unbelievable as a you know, getting over now. But when it comes down to it, though, so let's talk a little more about Hogan. I you know, we can't talk feuds in wrestling without talking about one of the greatest of all time. In Hogan, who is, so would you say the Savage is your favorite feud with him?
I mean, that was good, but also the Andre thing, you know, when he grabbed the necklace and the shirt off of him, and even, you know,
I will kill you, Hulk Hogan.
His nail went into his chest and he bled, and, you know, that was just like a thing, man. That was really awesome. And then, you know, everybody thinks Hulk Hogan was the first one to body slam him. No, you know, Andre's been body slammed many a time before that, but that was just the epic moment, man. Of my childhood anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't even the first time Hogan slammed him. I mean, I think he did it in Shea Stadium in the 80s. But, you know, Harley did it. Jerry Lawler did it, right? Didn't Lawler, you know, so.
I don't know that I've seen Lawler do it, but I know Harley did.
Well, I know Lawler beat him or something, and that was a big deal. So maybe Lawler didn't body slam him. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, I mean, dude, that was a deal, man. Like, Andre, my brother has this great theory, and tell me if you don't think this would be great. So you know how Tyson had Punch Out in the 80s? That wrestling, the boxing game. Can you imagine if Hogan?
That game gave me so much anxiety.
I know, bro. Think about how many hours of sleep
I finally beat Tyson, but god damn, I can't tell you how much anxiety I had playing that game. Anyway,
think about if there would have been a game where Hogan had to work through Piper, King Kong Bundy, Paul Orndorff, Bob Orton Jr., you know, whoever.
Paul Orndorff was another one that was awesome. I don't know if do you remember this game? I'm trying to think the name of it. God dang it. It was on my Commodore 64. because it had to do with because I had a baseball game like it, micro wrestling or oh my god, it was something like. And Paul Orndorff's pile driver was almost, if not better than Lawler's. Look up micro league wrestling.
Oh yeah,
that's
it. Micro league wrestling. That is it, Wolf. You got it. You got it. Yeah, that was it. That's it. Exactly. God, that is actually it. Thank you for making me look that up, because that I would have never found it. But that is exactly the game. I had it on a floppy disk. Yeah.
Yes.
So
that's
just
not
bring
your
it.
first. Is that your first floppy disk?
I think so. Maybe one of the Oregon Trails or something, but that might have even been on the computer itself already.
As I get older, I have a floppy disk too. But yeah, micro league wrestling was so freaking cool, man. And Paul Orndorff has the best on that game. Probably has the best pile driver next to Jerry Lawler.
Oh, dude, yeah. I mean, I think that's true anyway. Probably, isn't it? Like thinking about it.
I remember, Randy Savage's elbow on that and all kinds of stuff, man. I used to play the shit out of that stuff.
Yeah, I love that. I love that game. I agree with you. There
was a British game called Rockin' Wrestling, which was so cool, man. So cool. When you would jump off the top rope, the whole ring would shake, and then there was a really great pile driver on that too. And they had like different characters. There was a hillbilly. There was this, that, and the other. But yeah, that was fun stuff.
Yeah. Well, seriously, though, back to this Punch-Out idea. My brother Jared, the Plastic Sheik, he came up with this idea. If Hogan would have slammed Andre, like you had to beat Mike Tyson, only it was Hogan building up to the match with Andre to beat him. And I just thought that would be a cool idea. And, it would have been a cool game if they would have made it, but they didn't. But anyway, on to more feuds. I mean, the Road Warriors, we talked about them a little bit with the Midnight Express, but one of the things I think that let me down was when they first came to WWE and in 1990, and they put them immediately with Demolition. And it was almost like basically Vince got the real ones and decided to ditch the old ones, where, in the past he may not have done that. So it was kind of weird that they went into that angle immediately with Demolition. I just thought that was
man, you know me. I love the Road Warriors, and I love the WCW Road Warriors with the black shoulder pads and the silver spikes and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, the best.
WWE was a different story. Demolition was Vince's version of them, and no disrespect to any of those guys, but it was like the ripoff to me. I was like, as a kid, I was like, no, I don't like that. Bill Eadie as the Masked Superstar was awesome. And I always wonder this. You remember how he used to do the Randy Savage, or I don't know if Randy got it from Bill, but the sit-out clothesline?
Yeah.
He never did that as Demolition.
It was almost like he kind of dumbed himself down as Axe. To be, but I think maybe that's just the WWE style, where he was the best as the superstar, man. Oh my God.
I love the Masked Superstar.
Dude, what a great gimmick.
I always loved masked wrestlers. I just did.
They're great. I mean, it's just a huge part of wrestling. So with Demolition and the Road Warriors, and then you had Powers of Pain. I know that the Road Warriors and Powers of Pain worked a little bit together before the Powers of Pain went to WWF. But really, what would you say is the Road Warriors' greatest feud? Now, when it comes down to it, there's some great feuds they had, especially with Nation of Domination, which we'll get to that later. But what would you say is your favorite feud that the Road Warriors had?
Man, they had great matches with the Steiners, man, because that was another team that I loved. Scott Steiner inventing the Frankensteiner. When he did that move on Memphis TV, I called my buddy and I was like, "Did you fucking see that? Did you see what he did? Oh my God, the motherfucker jumped up and flipped it, And now everybody's doing it, but I mean, it's just like, damn. And I had a conversation with Scott about that, and I can't remember what he told me about how he came up with it, but he was like, "Yeah, I'm the first person to do that." And I said, "It's not a hurricanrana." He said, "You're fucking right. It's not. It's called a Frankensteiner."
And we're standing on that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the Steiners, man, I always just was, I got to say, I didn't hate the Steiners, but I kind of felt like with the Steiners, like, man, you're taking the shine from the Road Warriors. But I get it, man. Two incredibly talented teams, and they were impossible not to love, man. Just, you know, like, and that I think is where NWA and Crockett and WCW stood apart, especially there for a good amount of time. Yeah, you had the Hart Foundation, the Rockers, and the Demolition and all that. But
so many good tag teams, man.
Road Warriors, Steiners, Rock and Roll Express, Midnight Express. Let's talk that for a second. That's my all-time favorite feud, by the way. The Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express. Honestly, that was still going up until Bobby passed away. I mean, really, you know. I know that Bobby... You know,
dude, all them guys could work, man, and they just go out there and they just do it, you know, and that's what made it so good, man. And especially as someone in the business, when you watch it, you go, "Holy shit, these guys were good." You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, do you think it was that they were so equally gifted and talented? And I mean, because really, if you think about it, you know, like the Batman versus the Joker, they're two totally opposites. Batman's this Olympic level athlete that's a detective, and the Joker's a psychotic madman. But then the Rock and Roll Express is almost like Superman and Bizarro with Midnights. The Midnights were just the evil version of the Rock and Rolls. You know what I mean? Because even if the Midnights would have been baby faces, they would have probably done very similar to the Rock and Roll. But because the Midnights were the great heels, and you had Jim Cornette pushing that feud, I don't know, man. That's why I say I think it's my favorite.
It was great, man. It was really good, man. And I think you got to give, you know, he gets a lot of hate sometimes, but you got to give Jim Cornette major props on that, because Bobby couldn't talk. Stan was okay on the mic or whatever. But,
right.
You know, without Cornette, man.
Yeah.
But that in-ring work made it work. And then you got Ricky and Robert, who, you know, especially Ricky, knew how to sell, and it just made it, man. It's that thing. It's that once in a lifetime combination.
Yeah, because I mean, and if you think about that, how they even got over, really, because you take it to the other side. So the Midnights, you're right, Bobby couldn't really talk, unfortunately. Dennis couldn't talk, you know. Stan Lane could, but when you have Cornette, you're not going to talk as much with Cornette there. But then on the other side, Ricky and Robert, Ricky was the promo. Robert really wasn't. Robert was like the, yeah, brother, you know, that kind of thing, you know. And, that's kind of an interesting thing, because you coming from a tag team yourself in promos, Ricky and Robert, you know, Ricky was so much a better promo, but Robert kind of sold it home. How did you and Jamie choose that? You know, obviously Jamie is a motor. I mean, was it just a natural thing that happened as far as the promos go?
No, it was like Jamie taught me how to talk, man. Be honest with you, man, because, you know, I've told you that before. Like, my first promo, I fucking turned my back to the camera. I came back and Byrd cussed me out. It just, I hadn't been trained on it. Nobody told me how to do that.
Yeah.
And so just being with Jamie and listening to him, and then Randy, you know, helping me do stuff, I just got better at it and figured it out, you know, and then I got to where I could do it. You know, I'm not going to say I was the best promo guy, but, you know, I got good at it, I think.
Yeah. You did, and you definitely were holding your own. And I would to compare you to the Rock and Roll is not necessarily fair, because you're a much better promo than Robert is. Not to knock Robert, but I think you just have a more dynamic voice, and you're a different dude. You're not him. You know, you're not the same person as Robert, and that was not necessarily y'all's position, because in a sense, I guess it was, because you were the hot tag, but. Jamie just didn't want to take the finish, right? That was it there.
That was a lot of times. Yeah, beat Wolfie.
Yeah.
All the big matches, look who gets beat.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, okay. So let's go on a little further here. Now, obviously, with, when it comes down to it, when the 80s, we've talked so much about the great 80s feuds, but the one or two main feuds in the 90s that stood out, you had Austin and McMahon, and you had Sting in the NWO.
Yeah, man. Austin McMahon, I think, goes at the top of the list for all-time best.
Sure.
I mean, honestly, man, because they've made the comparisons to, everybody goes to work and hates their boss and blah blah blah. And I think that's why it resonated with everybody. But Stone Cold was just in his element right then, man, with the Byrds, and the stunner was a new move, and just everything clicked, man. Everything clicked.
Yeah, definitely. Then you had McMahon turning heel, which, everybody knew he was the owner of the company, but he had never shown himself to be he was only an announcer, basically.
Right. And I mean, all the shit they did, man, blowing up cars, putting cement in cars, and just everything they did was like over the top, like over the top. You know what I mean?
Right. But you know what the cool thing is if you would have done that in the 80s, it would have worked then too. That's the cool thing. But, had it not been in the 90s, in the 80s, it would have been a little PG down, possibly. But, man, I mean, it culminated in Mike Tyson showing up. I mean,
they had everything. That was the Attitude Era. They had everything. DX, all that shit, man. I mean, hell, that's another one, man. DX showing up and, to WCW, and then you had NWO, and fuck, man, the Monday Night Wars. I mean, that shit was crazy back then.
What I always wondered, and this has been brought up before, but what I always wondered is, did the DX think it through, knowing that Haku could have been standing on the other side of that door?
Yeah, who knows, man?
I feel like if that door would have slung open, just like you would have done with guys working in a different company, you'd have known some people. You'd have been like, "Hey, brother, what's up? Good to see you. How you doing? How's the money here? How's the money here?" That kind of stuff.
For sure.
Yeah, you think you can get me on? That kind of stuff. But no, I mean, dude, and then you had Sting in the NWO, which to me, that was the stuff I loved, bro. My brother and I, my uncle had a cheater box. You could get all the pay-per-views, and we would watch them all, man. And dude, that build up to Sting and Hogan at Starrcade, what a great build up for such a fart in church as far as the payoff on that. Supposed to be a fast count, and it wasn't. And Hogan, you'll never know the true story. I think, it was. But anyway, they were saying that Sting, Quentin brought up a great point on my show the other day. He said, Sting had been spending the entire time up in the rafters in the darkness, right? Well, Hogan said that when Sting got to Starrcade, he said he hadn't looked like he hadn't been working out, and he didn't have a tan. Well, he wouldn't get that up in the rafters. You see what I'm saying? So Hogan was thinking from a perspective of like, no, man, you got to work out, gym tan, all that. But no, it didn't make sense for Sting to look like that coming from the rafters, like the Crow, But anyway, what a great feud, man. That was, I mean,
and man, I was a huge fan of the the Surfer Boy Sting.
Oh, dude, totally.
I love that. I really loved that as a kid. But then, I mean, that was awesome. The Crow Sting obviously made a lot of waves in the wrestling business, man, and the whole NWO, and very cool stuff they did, man. Very cool stuff they did.
Yeah, definitely. And one more thing that I'll say before we take a quick break here is I think one of the most recent feuds that has really, reinvigorated you partially into wrestling again was the Cody Bloodline feud.
It's a current affair!
Now, I know it wasn't just that for you, but that has been one of the major feuds recently that has really sold a lot of tickets, man.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely, man. That shit, that build up to the last WrestleMania was awesome. And the thing that just being in the business and knowing how shit goes, I know they altered that. I know, I don't know, but I do know that they altered that because I feel like it wasn't supposed to go one way and then it went another because of the fans' reaction, and that's the best booking you could do right there is just go with what they're giving you. And with The Rock, Final Boss, all that bullshit, that was awesome, man. It was really good.
Yeah, it was well done. I think they booked on the fly for some of it, like you said, but that pivot was good. It wasn't that noticeable, but it was still like if you know, but that kind of thing. But man, I think, like I said, I think it reinvigorated wrestling for a lot of us old guys, especially the ones that like story-based wrestling. And hopefully it's a sign of positive things to come. But speaking of positive things to come, Wolfie, I have this idea. What if we take a quick break and come back and talk about PG-13's all-time greatest feuds? What do you think? Oh,
man. We can talk about that.
No, don't twist your arm, right?
No, don't twist me.
All right.
We'll be right back after these messages.
Let's take a quick time out and get a word from one of my dope-ass sponsors, and we'll be right back with more Live and in Color with Wolfie D.
The Portland Wrestling Expo will take place on Saturday, February 22nd at the Holiday Inn Portland Airport. The PWE will be a celebration of the unique past and present of the Pacific Northwest area. It's presented by Captain's Corner. Announced guests include The Grappler, Mean Mike Miller, Top Gun, Ricky Santana, Moondog Moretti, John Nord, and C.W. Bergstrom. There will even be a Portland Wrestling History Q&A. In addition, there'll be international guests such as Hall of Famers Eric Bischoff, Rikishi, crowd favorites like The Boogeyman and Lance Von Erich. Make sure to head on over to pwexpo.com to get your tickets. VIP tickets are already half sold. The Portland Wrestling Expo on Saturday, February 22nd. Be there.
All right, we're back. And if we're talking feuds, we've got to talk your greatest feuds, man. Especially, and I don't want to limit it just to PG-13 because you had great feuds with the Disciples and the New Church. But let's start off with PG-13. What would you say? Let's dial it even further back. What would you say is your first big feud in wrestling?
First big feud was probably with the Eliminators.
Okay.
I mean, because before that, Jerry Jarrett booked us in, whatever. We were kind of undercard fucking ha-has.
Yeah.
Goofy guys or whatever. But the Eliminators were our first test against a team that had shown that they were, badass or whatever they were. And that one would be the first one.
Okay. And then did that progressed on to Doug and Tommy after that?
Yeah. Doug and Tommy, and then cutting our hair, putting my eye out, me breaking Tommy's arm with the baseball bat, and we just did tick for tack on all that. And that was so good, man. It was so good the way we did shit. And unfortunately, Eddie died during that period, and Doug was out for a minute, and Gorgeous George came in, but it made the storyline even cooler. You know what I mean?
Right.
Unfortunately, it did. It made the storyline even cooler, and we drew money.
Yeah, and that's what it's all about when it comes down to it,
Yeah.
So I was just joking around, with you when we were bringing up this idea of feuds, and you were like, let's not do a top 10 per se. Let's just do a loose conversation talking about feuds. And I'm like, that's great. Here's mine. Rock and Roll Express versus Midnights. Rock and Roll Express versus Heavenly Bodies. Rock and Roll Express versus the Andersons. Rock and Roll Express versus the Russians. In this one, I want to talk about Rock and Roll Express versus the PG-13. I sincerely think that it is one of the Rock and Roll Express greatest feuds. I do. I know it's one of yours. That's not in the question. I'm saying,
yeah, man. I mean,
Rock and Rolls.
That match in Louisville, I say it like that, Louisville. I think that's how they say it. But yeah, man, that put us over the top, and then we went from there. There was the Texas death match and all that, and there was, I don't know if we talked about this on here, but we worked the paramedics, man. There was a match or something where we all got color. Randy, me, Jamie, we all got color, and the paramedics rushed out there. They legitimately thought we were hurt and took us back and shit. And we didn't fucking, let them know, we're okay. No, we sold it like we were hurt,
Yeah, right.
And that made it even better, man, because that was kayfabe back then, man. And that was so awesome. Those are the times that I'll never forget, man, honestly.
And would you say, you would say the Rock and Roll is your favorite feud of all time?
Yeah. The whole Smoky Mountain thing was good, I mean, fuck, Terry Gordy pile drive me through a table, even though after his stroke he was, and I told the story where he held me up for like 1,000 minutes. It was funny. It was so funny. He came in from the crowd and picked me up, and the table was supposed to be set up, but it wasn't, and so it threw him off, and he just picked me up in a pile driver, and he walked around for about what felt like 20 minutes, but it was probably 20 seconds or something. But yeah, he pile drive me through a table. So, Terry Gordy, Tommy Rich, Doug Gilbert. I mean, all these people that I worked with was so cool, man.
Yeah. And then, obviously the Rock and Roll Express, it's funny, if I was looking at my personal at James Rock Street YouTube page, and I was looking at some of the playlists that I'd saved through the years that I'd had that. And one of them was an entire playlist of the USWA versus Smoky Mountain feud. And that Rock and Roll Express match kind of set that all off. Did that give Randy the idea, or was the idea already culminating and that was the start of it?
No, I think that was, we were just going on from that. We knew what it was going to be. And then, great match. And then we just kept going with it.
Gotcha. Okay. And then obviously that leads into Tracy Smothers and Dirty White Boy, who's turned into a great friend of yours. And of course, Tracy was as well. But, you're going from the Rock and Rolls to those two guys. What was the difference in your mind between the two teams?
Rock and Roll would, they wanted to work with you or whatever, but Tracy every night would come at you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, he wanted to work, man, and he'd beat you up, and, he wanted to work, man. White Boy, he wanted a night off. Robert wanted a night off. So did Ricky. But we did it in a way that was, instrumental and cool with the people.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
No, it does. Sense. It totally does. So then Tracy Smothers and Dirty White Boy, and then the feud ends, and of course, unfortunately, Smoky Mountain goes out of business. But you guys do work some stuff with the Heavenly Bodies as well, which honestly, that's one of my favorite feuds is the Rock and Roll versus the Heavenly Bodies. The Bodies were great. Even in Stan Lane being involved or Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey involved. Yeah, I love that story that I can just picture it. Let's just pretend PG-13 and the Bodies are going to a bar together. I know it breaks kayfabe. And Dr. Tom telling that story about how you could not go anywhere with Gigolo Jimmy Del Rey without him announcing something like, we just wrestled at Survivor Series or something. And you're like, brother, I know exactly what you're talking about because Jamie was the same way. And Talk about, I mean, especially after y'all do big things, talk about how Jamie would be, fired up after y'all did big things like you worked at WrestleMania or something.
Oh, he'd always be fired up.
Didn't even have to have that. Okay.
Hey, mom, top of the world is what he would text his mom sometimes.
I can just hear it. Hey, mom, top of the world.
Yeah.
Look at you, boy. Anyway, yeah, so I can just imagine you wanting to hide your head, just be a normal person for a minute, have a drink, and leave me alone. And then Jamie's like, hey, look at me. And then I can just see Gigolo and Tom being the same way. It's so funny. But anyway, so you had the Bodies. The Bodies are just such a legendary tag team themselves. I mean, how was it working them? What a great feud with them.
Dude, they were awesome, man. Jimmy was like, he was a athlete, what I mean?
Right.
And Tom is just Dr. Tom. He was a doctor in the ring.
He was a scientist of wrestling,
Exactly. Yeah. And Jimmy was just an athlete, man. And I think they both, that's what a tag team is, man. There's two guys that play off of each other.
Right.
To have a good one, that's, in my, 30-something years of tag team wrestling, I think it just works out like that. Me and Brian Lee were totally different workers, but damn, we were a good tag team.
Yeah, well, let's hold off on him real quick. I want to get to one more thing here. So obviously, after Smoky Mountain shuts down, then you guys actually escalate to a level, really, that you probably didn't even know you could at this point. I'm sure you didn't envision yourself being somewhat the managers for a major faction in WWE. I know you weren't per se the managers, but really you took all the bumps for them. You know what I mean? So think about it from that perspective. You're wrestling the Bodies in the Rock and Roll and Tom and Dirty White Boy. And then you go and you're now getting to work storylines with your favorite tag team of all time, dude. How much are you pinching yourself during all this?
I don't know that I pinched myself. I fucking went in a room with Hawk one time, and he was like, he had his whole attire on or whatever, not the shoulder pads, but the tights and all that. And he was like, man, I think I'm gonna get liposuction. And he was grabbing his like love handles. I'm gonna get liposuction.
The ones he always covered with his pants. He always hiked his pants.
the high pull-up shorts or whatever.
Yeah, tights or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, okay, but we were smoking a doob, and he's like, man, I'm gonna get liposuction. So anyway, that was funny.
And you were doing that in the building.
In the building.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So I see what's up. I like it. Okay. So you work the Road Warriors and you get that one match where they beat the crap out of you and you get essentially fired. And we know the story. We're not going to relive that, but that is a bit of a legendary match, as it was a perspective of how will little bitty old PG-13 ever look like they could work against the Road Warriors. Well, yeah, I do think there's many ways that we could have put y'all into an angle and they could have gone with it. You and I could write that and it would be awesome. But they put you in the angle as they did. Knowing now what happened, you still really appreciate that match, even though what happened after it.
Absolutely. We walked out. We're not going to do it. And then got talked back into it, and and we came out there and did the best we could, man. Made it look good, and I think everybody liked it.
Yeah,
one of the best job matches ever, I think.
Take that, Reno and Barry Horowitz. There you go.
Yeah, take that.
Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah, but I mean, and then so LOD,
and then we can. Like when we came back to ECW after that, every time we would go to the ring, the whole crowd would chant LOD, LOD, LOD. Yeah, it's like, fuck y'all, man.
At least do the nah. At least do something with us. Come on, LOD. Well, at least you were remembered, so, and those ECW faithful will eat up the best of you, But so going into ECW, you work a lot with Mikey Whipwreck. You work a lot with Spike Dudley. You work the Dudleys at Hardcore Heaven in a bit of a change of things. Talk about, what would you say your memories of feuds in ECW were?
Man, Mikey and Spiky were awesome. Loved working with those guys. Loved it. We had great matches with those guys, man. And there's what do they call it? ECW cam or something like that. I mean,
fan cam. The fan cam.
Yeah, the fan cam, man, has got so many matches with us on it that I used to have, but someone stole it from me. I'm not going to say his name. But man, those were so good. We had great matches with them.
And working the pit bulls up there, of course, you hate that move, but you
hated that move. Yes, hated that move.
You worked the pit bulls.
I worked with everybody up there. I think Taz. That was another funny one. Is that I was working with Taz that night it was a single, and I kept coming back to my bag, and somebody had put sugar packets on my bag, like he was going to stretch me or something.
You think that was Jamie? Probably.
I don't know who it was, but it was funny. We had a good match.
And then, okay, so obviously you go to ECW, then you guys end up in WCW some. You don't really have any feuds, but you're kind of pushed into that mid-card tag team spot with the Young Dragons, 3 Count, those guys. Talk about WCW.
I loved it, man. It was awesome. It sucked that it was in the last days of it. Young Dragons, 3 Count, Guerrero. We worked with everybody that was there, and even Nash and Steiner and all this kind of stuff, man. We worked with everybody, man, and it was cool. It was cool, and everybody appreciated us, and all that. But it was in the dying days, so what are you going to do? And then me and Arn almost got in a fight, and he don't really remember it, but I at Ric Flair's last match, I came up to him and I told him about it. He's like, "Oh my God, I don't remember that." I said, "Yeah, you was drunk, so was I."
Yeah. Well, how can you forget it though, right? Come on. So
the next day he's like, "Hey kid." I said, "What?" He said, "I heard we almost got in a fight last night." I was like, "Yeah."
That's funny, man. Wolfie and Double A, that would be a fight.
No,
glad it didn't happen.
Me too.
So then you end up splitting up. PG-13 breaks up. You do get back together randomly for different local shows, but most of the time PG-13's done and you turn into Slash. You go to TNA, and you're a TNA original and the Disciples of the New Church. Talk about some of the feuds with them.
The first thing they put us in was with AMW, America's Most Wanted. Yeah. James Storm, who I trained, and so it was great, man. I think we were the first faction, like a real faction in TNA. Yeah. Man, those matches were really good. Really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And working with Brian in those feuds with America's Most Wanted, dude, some of the things that I remember that I loved, and I know I remember buying all the TNA DVDs at that time, and I own the one with you on the cover, by the way.
Awesome.
I still need to get you to sign that for me. But but I remember buying that at the Great Escape. I would go down there and they would have all their DVDs, at a good price, and I would buy all the TNA DVDs. And so the cool thing is I was following it, even if I was just following it on DVDs. And I just remember watching like the Raven feud that you guys had was awesome. And man, I mean, some great matches, a lot of blood loss. I mean, CM Punk, Shane Douglas. You had so many people involved.
I didn't understand how all of a sudden I became a hardcore bleeding wrestler. I swear, TNA, I was like, what the fuck, man? Why am I bleeding every night? Why am I doing hardcore shit? I'm wrestling the Harris brothers, the fucking TNA, ECW guys. Fuck, man. Can I stop bleeding?
Please, anytime now. Seriously. Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, any good feud usually ends in blood, right? That's the goal.
Yeah.
But,
red equals green is what they used to say.
Yeah. Well, you've had some incredible feuds, and now it's just with your former tag team partner, Jamie. But the cool thing is PG-13 has had some great feuds, and, you know, it's cool to look back and get to talk about them. But what would you say, Han, and I think I know the answer to this, but just to kind of wrap things up for today, what would you say is the feud that defines you as a wrestler?
Has to be the Rock and Roll Express.
Yeah, I figured you were going to say that.
The Louisville match where we beat them, and that came to be, you know. That was awesome.
Yeah. Well, okay, now here's a different question, and I promise this will be my last question. What would you say is the number one feud that the fans come up to you and talk to you about?
Tommy and Doug.
Tommy and Doug? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I think it's so memorable, because that was like, even though the Eliminators did happen, I do think people think of Tommy and Doug as like your starting point, don't you think? Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's what put us over.
Yeah. And started it all up and love. I mean, dude, what a great career. But yeah, I don't have a feud with that. I think that's a great answer. You know, I love the Doug and Tommy stuff, and I love the rock and roll stuff. I think one thing though is that run with America's Most Wanted and Brian Lee is highly underrated, and y'all should go check those matches out immediately if you haven't seen them recently. So, but that's all I got, homie.
All right. So when we come back, I'm going to have a new little segment of Wolfie D's final thoughts. I'm not Jerry Springer, but I know somebody has been on there.
And the worst guest ever.
The worst guest ever. So anyway, I'm going to have a little final thought here in a minute when you come back.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Are you a pro wrestling fan? Well, stop by Captain's Corner, where you can get autographed photos, cards, magazines, and figures from all of your favorite wrestling superstars of the past, present, and future. You'll also be able to participate in live signings in the weeks and months to come. Make sure to stop by Captain's Corner on Facebook and give us a holler. Remember, cheers to the working man.
All right, we are back again, and we're going to do something a little different, Jimmy. I'm going to have, my Jerry Springer thing here, Wolfie's final thoughts. Since it's the new year and, you know, everybody's doing resolutions and all this, I posted something on Facebook that got quite a bit of attention, and I just want to read it and man, I think everybody needs to do better, man. I do, for sure.
Yeah.
I think everybody needs to do better. But if you don't mind, you and the listeners, allow me to give my thoughts right here.
Yeah, I like this. This can be a new segment sometimes. Yeah.
All right.
Lay it on us.
All right, man. I remember being broke for Christmas one year after food shopping and paying the bills, and wrote a post-dated check. Who writes checks anymore? But I know you've post-dated a check before.
Oh, yeah.
But I wrote a post-dated check to make sure I could provide a good Christmas for my family. I've lived as high and as low as possible. We all know that, man. I've been to the mountaintop, and Dusty said, dined with kings and queens, and
slept in alleyways and dined on pork and beans.
There we go. There was times I could put $10 in my gas tank just to get around. Other times I'd put $50 in it to fill it up. I've had $5 to feed myself, and I've also had $200 to go out and eat and buy other people's stuff. I've had a house full of food, and at times I didn't have any, and that's a shoot, Pally. I've been in stores cashing out with no worries, and I've also had to put stuff up, put it back on the shelf because I couldn't afford it.
Yeah.
I paid my bills in full, and I've had to pay them late, and I also am in debt.
Yeah.
I've given money, and I've had to ask for money. We've all had highs and lows in life, some certainly more than others, but we're all just trying to make it. No one is better than anyone else, and my heart is sad for those who think that they are. No matter how big your house is, how new your car is, or how much money sits in your bank account, we all bleed red, and we'll eventually fade from this earth. Death has no discrimination, and neither should your life. And I'll tell you, when I had that heart attack, man, that brought new perspective on everything, because it could have been it right then.
No doubt.
Be kind to others. We are all here to serve. Stop the power tripping. Your oversized ego won't get you anywhere. Just be humble. And that's where I'm at with everything, man, you know?
Yeah, that's good, man. I've been kind of thinking about, like, how could we do something like this as a closing segment, kind of, I think put people, maybe even if it's like a coach pumping people up, or you know, maybe just putting a good word in people's ear, we like, so I think that's cool, man, and I'm glad you shared that, and I can't wait to,
I guess the message is just, in 2025, just do better.
Keep it
no
real.
matter what it is. No matter what it is, if you could do something a little better or be a better person, just do a little better. I think we can all benefit from that.
Definitely. I love it. Yeah.
I hope everybody enjoyed our take on the greatest feuds of our lives, careers, childhood, whatever. Like I said, if you guys got some memories that you'd like to share with us, we'd love it. We'll even read them on here. So participate, folks, and do better in 2025. Join us next week for Live and in Color with Wolfie D and my man Jimmy across the street.
Still live and in color on the Wolfie D. It's Wolfie D, baby. I got a cap for your dome. We got a cap for your dome.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Give Me Back My Pro Wrestling, the podcast that's based on the old school but can still help you find the good stuff from today. Jimmy Street and the Plastic Chic, Jared, are the undisputed tag team champions of the wrestling podcast world. From thought-provoking topics to superstar interviews to action figure expertise. This team does it all, and all they ask is, give me back my pro wrestling! Every other Thursday, wherever you listen to podcasts.
Woo, mercy! This is Handsome Jimmy, professional wrestler, the Boogie Woogie Man. Come on, people, my brothers and sisters, don't you dare miss this one. It's Wrestling Talk with Mayor McCall. Yes, baby, be there or be square. Oh, yeah, ha, 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 ha.
Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, inviting you to check out the Retro Wrestling Review, where each week I'm joined by some great co-hosts who help me review classic episodes of USWA Championship Wrestling, and right now we are doing week-by-week reviews of 1993. But we don't just do reviews, sometimes we get a chance to interview some of the people who were there and lived it, plus do watch-alongs. It's a lot of fun, so check out new episodes that drop every Wednesday at WrestleCopia.com, and to find links to everything associated to the podcast, you can go to USWApodcast.com.
That's right, it's the talk of Middle Tennessee, the channel you love to hate and the channel you hate to love. It's Brian Turner from Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. And if you're looking for matches from Wolfie D to Jerry Lawler to Dusty Rhodes and the team that put a pimp before your eyes and a goatee between your thighs, Booty Call and Athena, go to LostWrestling.com. See, I made it easy for you. Brian Turner's VHS Rehab. Booyah.
Hi, this is Mike Needham, host of the Reckless Abandon Podcast with Mike Needham. We invite you to jump on your favorite podcast platform and search for the Reckless Abandon Podcast and give us a listen. I'm sometimes joined by a part-time podcaster, part-time co-host, and full-time wife, Tiffany Nicole. We talk wrestling, we talk pop culture, We talk local events, local happenings in West Tennessee, and a ton of other stuff. But be sure to check out the Reckless Abandon podcast. Find us on Facebook. Also, look up the Microgroup Podcasting family on Facebook and see some of our other podcasts we have out there. Until next time, make good choices and always remember, no dollar, no dice.
So that was another great episode. Hey, Wolfie, tell them where they can find you on social media.
Jimmy, they can find me in the club, bottle full of bub. I'm just kidding. They can find me on Facebook. My personal page is Warren Wolf, WLFE. I'm on Instagram at Warren Wolf 13.
You can always find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube at Live Wolfie D. Here's the thing. Wolfie always has offers for his autographed photos. He has a selection of some awesome photos from throughout his career that he will autograph and personalize any way that you want him to. Just contact him either directly at his personal Facebook page or through any one of our other pages, and we'll make sure you get in contact directly with Wolfie. Get those photos, right, Wolfie?
Yeah, I've got some good stuff on there, to help with the podcast.
Folks, if you can't get out to a show to meet Wolfie D, there's nothing like that, especially for the fans of PG-13 and Wolfie D. And before we go, you can always find me, your host, Jimmy Street, at James Rock Street on Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube.
And hey, Jimmy, before we go real quick, I just want to add in there, from the bottom of my heart, I really appreciate, first of all, the work you've done for this podcast. You have worked your butt off. Secondly, the people that are liking the page. Beyond that, even more, is the people that are listening, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, and remember, guys, the podcast drops a new episode every Monday at noon, and our past episodes are streaming now on demand on all major podcast formats. Thanks again.
Yeah. PG-13 Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame class of 2024. Give it up. Spaceman Jones with the beat. Here we go. The 90s was ours, and we did it with pride. 15-time tag champs, what a hell of a ride. Rock and roll couldn't beat us. No Tommy and Doug. Not Smothers, dirty white boy who called themselves thugs. T is for terrible. H is for hell. Ha! PG both got locked up in county jail. The kid was real. And we were immature punks. Buddy Wayne couldn't stand us because we didn't wear trunks. We did it our way. In and out of the ring. Bought a real rap swagger to the Memphis thing. You can hate it, you can love it. We just did our thing. Still true to the game. Now we Hall of Fame. PG-13. Put respect on our name. Yeah.
This has been a James Rock Street production.